From the audience, or comment.
You first? Okay. Let me adjust the camera here. Oops. I'm trapped.
Jeanne, 37248 55th Avenue South, West Hill. I've gone through the budget perfunctorily, and a few things jump out at me. The first was a statement in the mayor's letter that there was a cost of living increase of 1% attributed to one particular set of union represented employees. I think that needs to be corrected because there was also a 2% cost, a 2% across the board increase to the police department for becoming accredited. It works out to about $22,000 a year. It's in the contract, page G. You struck it in the negotiations. It was in the 2014 contract. In the report from the police department, I see the goals included, let's see, criminal justice training, increasing firearm training from once per year to twice per year, and combined training with CSPA. I'll go in some of as possible. I'm not sure what CSPA means.
Coalition of Small Police Agencies.
Coalition of Small Police Agencies. Well, the state legislature has asked for a report on hazards from transport of materials, particularly oil and coal, going to the legislature. The draft form is out, and the state says that they're going to work with the first responders to make sure that they're supported. I don't see anything in here that reports or says anything about additional training for our fire department or police, excuse me, not fire department, but police department regarding any accidents on the rail system or emergency training. And I think that it would be much more appropriate to put money into training and planning for emergencies than it would be to buy another police car. I do have a question about the number of collisions increase since 2010. There's an awful lot of traffic. We don't know if that collision increase is attributable to road construction, people driving slow because speed limits have been reduced, and so other people are taking chances. Just what the justification is or what the reason is for the collision. But I think redeployment of personnel would be just as effective as hiring a traffic officer. And it is, by the way, a bit not approved by the state to use traffic enforcement as an income. It says here, sustains his employment as well as additional revenue. So I think that needs to be re-looked at. In looking at the parks page, we have parks capital improvement with a 305 fund, $119,000 plus. But when you look through the budget, there's no indication, maybe I don't have the line item, that suggests how that money is being planned for. Is there just, I don't know, the Parks Department board had goals at the beginning of the year, increasing staffing, working on reports, getting parks plan going, working with architects, yet in the budget, it's got my page, I believe there's still zero revenue. The pink one, next one, the one that's glued together, that's the one. Thank you. I've underlined a couple of zeros here. Supplies and consumables, zero. Equipment, zero. Professional services, zero. There is $1,000 for professional services, and I can only think that that's for the city to pay its own professional services, getting permits and architectural drawings or whatever it needs when it installs stuff, because there are some repairs and maintenance to pocket parks and a little bit for equipment or upgrades. Do we have any upgrades in here? Anyhow, most of the money is salaries. and very little money seems to be going to putting in better or fixing or replacing or doing anything that has to do with compensating or mitigating for the city park being closed 6 months of the year. And still, I don't see really much of a increase in the community services. Really bad when you have to fund your own senior and youth services department selling cookies, coffee, and chocolate at the tree lighting. So, and you know, if it's for the community and it's run by a non-profit group, okay. But I think we should really fund our community services better. My last statement here has to do with staffing. The Public Works water stormwater manager makes $4,500 to $6,000 a month. The city clerk makes $4,500 to $650 a month. The only difference I can see is one is union representation, the other is not. And when a person is in charge of being the city clerk, being the insurance person, and the personnel person, I think they have a lot more responsibilities than keeping an eye on the water system and stormwater. So I really think that the salary range should be increased for the city clerk and some of the other female employees that work in the city. Some have been here 10, 15, 20 years and are still making very little money compared to men who are making a lot more and not necessarily having that much more responsibility. So I think the council needs to consider some of its budget allocations as far as it pertains to equality between men and women working on the job. The last thing I want to say is I think the park does need more money for planning and resources. You have new parks that will be coming online. You have increased population. We hope that the park's level of service will go back up, that it will at least be concurrent and meet the requirements that are in the comprehensive plan, but I don't see that reflected in the budget. I would also like to point out that the planning resources in the city are down at least 2 people from what it was 10 years ago, if not more. The construction boom is maybe over as far as residences, but if you want to develop and work on more businesses in town that pay sales tax, so you're not so dependent on B&O tax and property tax, which is stagnant, then you need people in the community resources department, and I don't see that reflected in the budget. Thank you very much for your time.
Other public comment?
I'll walk up to you, Ken.
Kate Hall, 102 Alder Lane South. I'm here to talk mainly about the parks. I know that the Parks Committee started in July asking for numbers. So we asked in July, August, September, October, November. So we asked for 5 months straight. Due to staff resources and the fact that, as we know, this has been a bad year for staffing, we received them in mid-November. So when we took 2 days to put all of our stuff together, that did not give Richard enough time to answer our questions. So that is where we are. We sent 3 pages of questions. We didn't receive any feedback, but again, we didn't send them to him until the 20th of November. So part of that is our responsibility. We should have come to council in August and started saying, we're not getting what our mandate is. We are mandated to get those numbers by July so we can present our budget to you or to the mayor by September at the latest. We didn't do that either, so bad on us. So not all these issues are based on staff issues, or some of it is our own fault. So what we are really concerned about is, if you look at the budget and you look at what we are getting for the parks maintenance fund. So if you start with the maintenance fund in 2015, what amounts to the maintenance fund, which is on your line item budget, would be 308,80,00005. We start with $100,000. I don't know how we got that number, but we got that number, so that's what we're going to start with. Well, I can already tell you that parks will be over budget. How do I know that? Personnel costs, hard costs. We spend no dollars except for pay the people. It's $102,000. So we're already in a deficit situation. As I spoke to last week, 5% of 10 people should net us 612 maintenance hours. We currently maintain 3 parks with 612 hours. So we mow the big park in the summer. We mow Aspen, which we weren't mowing last year 7 to 10 days. We weren't mowing it because it was 18 inches high. And that's because it used to be the neighbor who died who used to take care of it, and when he died, no one took it over. The rest of the parks, we collect garbage. That's all we get for $102,000 a year. That does not include any improvements. This budget does not tell you that we're thinking about buying the Morgan property. This does not tell you that we need to put a fence around LC Park, around the stormwater ponds. And I don't see it in the budget where fencing is coming out of stormwater either. So that may be my oversight, but I don't see where a public safety hazard 5 months ago was identified. 5 months ago, the mayor directed a fence to go up, and we're still waiting for that fence. I can only speak about what I know is happening in the city, but I would think if more people than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 residents would come to this meeting, you would hear about the lack of staffing and the lack of needs that these budgets are addressing. I do not know how to get it across to the council that what we need is, for some of these services, maybe we should look at outsourcing, because currently 5% of the staff is not able to maintain these parks. And I just think for $96.61 per hour of maintenance, we could outsource it to a third party. We could increase, because 5% of their work, that means 4 hours, 2 hours a week could go back to something else, because as I've heard, there is a lot of need in this city, and we could save money. So we could not have to hire a new person for these 10 positions. We could increase the amount of maintenance that we are getting for our parks, so it would be a win-win situation. That is the only solution that I, as a private citizen, can come up with to get more maintenance in our park, and also relieve our overburdened staff of having to pick up the garbage and mow the large park every 7 to 10 days. I thank you for your time.
What am I dropping?
Is there any further public comment?
Barbara Lawrence, P.O. Box 263, Alder, Washington, I was there for a while. I can't remember what the post office box. I was going over the budget. Everybody's tight. I have a suggestion for the park board. the police have people that have to do community hours. I would suggest that maybe Chief Falcon can arrange some people to do some community hours for the park to help out. I was looking over the budget for the police. I know their lodging right now, year-to-date, $159,803.18. I'd like to know how much of that prisoner lodging is actually being paid back. My understanding is somebody is incarcerated, and they go to jail, and they get out, they're supposed to pay whatever the restitution or else they should be paying back for their jail time. Like a week, 2 days, something like that. It would be a good idea. As far as staffing goes, I don't know how that would work if you have people that are trying to do community hours maybe for high school. Maybe they can help out as well. Rich Hildreth, a couple of years ago, was trying to get business to come into the city. And he had made up a notebook introducing the city and the different properties and, you know, the benefits, perks of the city. Does anybody know what happened to any of those books? Because he had done a really good job when he was talking to proposing businesses coming to the city to help bring more business into the city. Does anybody know what happened to that?
Would have been his responsibility to pass it on to the mayor.
And we have no idea what happened with that.
I would say through all the disruption and everything else, with the mayor side son situation, you know, that information is probably someplace in the clerk's office or in the stuff from the previous mayor, from Rich Hildreth, or it was destroyed. There was a lot of stuff destroyed. So I don't know, but I'm not even supposed to speak on this. I want to answer that.
Does anybody mind that I didn't contact him and ask him about that? Because I know there are businesses around that, you know, move and, you know, look for other properties, and we're kind of central, so that's something that I kind of have a passion about, trying to get some other, you know, businesses in here.
I don't believe we have any right to tell a citizen what they can and can't do.
Okay. And I was also going to say, well, I'm working, but I'm making a lot less money than I used to, but if I'm available on weekends and you need some help filing, doing whatever, I have no problem with volunteering my time. I've got 90% of my degree in accounting, and I feel like I'm halfway smart at figuring things out. And I'm really good at opening my mouth, too. Thank you.
Is there any other member of the public who'd like to speak on the budget? Any other member of the public who'd like to speak on the budget? In that case, the public hearing on the budget is closed.